Well, hello and welcome back to That Girl's Quilting Threads and Things. I'm Diana, and today, please don't ask me to sing. We're going to try to harmonize some fabrics into making a barbershop quartet variation. So this is the 6-inch version of the block. Today we're going to make that 12-inch version. So join me at the cutting board and let's go ahead and get started piecing together, harmonizing those fabrics with our barbershop quartet block. All right, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves to our fabric today. We have A and F, which are our blues. It's a reverse color scheme than what you're seeing over here on the left, but these are our A fabric and our F fabric. Then we have our B and C, and then we have our D and E, which are our red fabrics. Okay, and this block is a 4x4 grid, and each one of our pieced units is going to finish out at 3 inches. So for the block itself, it's going to be 12.5 unfinished. It's nothing but half square triangles and 3-piece split quarter square triangles. For fabric A, we'll be making split quarter square triangles. So this first piece is going to be cut 4 1/4, and it's going to be paired up with fabric B. Now to prepare our first unit, this is going to make up 4 of the split portion of the quarter square triangle unit. So what I mean by that is this is a 3-piece split quarter square triangle. This will make up 4 of these pieced units right here. So let's go ahead and pin this in place. So what I tend to do is I'll take this tool here that I have, which has a center line down the middle. I'll draw 2 lines going this way. Do the same thing, 2 lines going this way. So this unit is ready to go. Then I need to pair the 4 1/4 inch B fabric with the F fabric cut at 4 1/4 inch. And this is also going to give me 4 of the split units. And if I were to map this out, if I'm going to talk about an individual unit within this as we're building it, this is my A, my B, and my C. And right now we are pairing fabrics up for specifically the B and C portion of our 3-piece split quarter square triangle. I have this paired up with my F unit, right sides together. I've already drawn the lines. I have arrows going in opposing directions. On the block instructions, if you notice where the dark fabric is, you'll see that there are basically mirror images. And in order to get mirror images, you need to sew your lines in opposite directions. For example, on this unit, which is our B and A, I'm going to take my stitch line and I'm going to put my needle just on the inside of this drawn line on the right side. And I'm going to stitch all the way down until I get to this center tick mark. Then I'm going to pivot the unit, stitch all the way over to this center tick mark just on the inside of the line. Then I'm going to pivot the unit back and I'm going to continue stitching on the inside of that line. Then I am going to turn the unit and I'm going to repeat the same sewing path to the center tick mark, pivot over, go to the center tick mark just on the inside of the line, pivot back, and continue stitching. In order to get the mirror unit, perform the same stitching process, but I need to start on the left side instead of the right side. So I will start on the left side, on the inside of my drawn line, stitch all the way down to the center piece, pivot, sew over to this one on the inside of the line, pivot, and finish my stitch. I will pivot the unit again and I will perform the same stitching methods. And that's going to give me my mirror imaged B and C units. So these 2 units are prepped up and ready to go to the sewing machine. Now let's go ahead and prep up our half square triangles. So for our half square triangles, we need 2 of our A fabric, and then we need 2 of our B fabric. For these, we are making half square triangles 2 at a time. Basically, when you're making half square triangles at a 2 at a time method, you take your finished size. In our case, the finished block will be 3 inches, and then you add 7/8 inch to that finished size and you cut your starting squares. You can draw one line center corner to corner. You can draw 2 lines. You want to sew 1/4 inch away from the center on the left and on the right side. So let's put these together. And then we have half square triangles for our D and our E. So all together we're going to have 8 half square triangles. So we have one with D and C, and we have one combination of E and C. These are now ready to go. In the remaining units, these triangle units are all going to be the A portion of our split quarter square triangles. So this is our A portion. All right, so now that we have the majority of our units prepped up and ready to sew, let's get to the sewing machine and get her done. All right, let's go ahead and start with our half square triangles. 1/4 inch on either side of that drawn line. I'm just going to chain piece these all the way through. For our split quarter square triangles, my arrow is on this side, so I'm going to start with the left side. And sewing just on the inside of the line. Not on the line, just on the inside to that first center tick mark. Pivot. And pivot, and again just on the inside of that line, finishing my stitch line that way. Now I'm going to turn it and I'm going to start on this left side and I'm going to repeat the same steps. Get to that center tick mark. Pivot. Hopefully you can see I have this zigzag of thread of a stitch line. Now for the other unit, in order to get those mirror pieces that I was talking about, I need to take and perform the same stitching method, but I need to do it from the right side. So now we have all of our pieces prepped. Let's cut our units up. All right, let's go ahead and cut these. All right, one, and you just simply roll it open, give it a quick finger press, same thing. Press to the dark side. And these again, these are cutting up the half square triangle units. For our split quarter square units, you're still going to cut this down the center and down the center. And basically what these lines that you've done, these are your seam lines. So that's what's going to give us our 4 units with the split element inside of it. Center. All right, there's 4 pieces there. One more we'll cut and then we'll open and reveal. Down the center. So let's open up these. So here we stitched down this way and this gave us this split unit. Then we pivoted across and came down this way. And that's going to give us this stitched unit. And then we pivoted the fabric around and we started from over here. And we stitched down this way and this gives us number 3 out of 4. And then we pivoted across the center and went down this way. And this opened it up and this again is going to give us our 4th element. So we have these 4 elements here. All of my darks are on this one side. Let's split these open. We stitched down this side, went over and down. So we have this unit here, and it gives us this unit, and we have this unit here from the top half of our stitch. Then we pivoted around and we sewed down this line, and we pivoted over and went down this way. And there's our 4 units. And if you notice, the dark portion is on the opposite side. So when we go to put these together, we get that diamond. I went ahead and did a rough layout of the block, and now we're going to take our A portion of our split square triangle unit, and we're going to connect it to our BC portion. So basically, I'm going to take my A cut piece, and I'm going to put it right sides together. Make sure that the edges are aligned nice and straight, and then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance down the side. Then I'll open it up, and I tend to press the fabric towards the A because that's where it wants to lay. All right, so here we go. We got quite a few of these to do. And remember, these are cut on the bias, so you're working with units that are easy to be distorted. So just handle them with kid gloves. Quick finger press to open them up. Let's put them back where they belong. And here's what I was referring to in the mirror piece. All right, so you see the 2 dark pieces are mirrored to each other. So now what we need to do is give these guys a press, and we need to square them all up to 3.5 inches. So I'll meet you back at the cutting table. They're all pressed. Let's go ahead and talk about squaring up. So squaring up on a half square triangle is fairly simple. You have a 45-degree line running through the center of your half square triangle. On your ruler, you will also have a 45-degree line. You know that this block needs to be squared down to 3.5 inches. You will find your 3.5 inch line that runs vertical and your 3.5 inch line that runs horizontal. When you go to do your final cut on your block to square it up, this is where you want your lower left corner to be. You want to line that 45-degree line smack on the center of your pieced unit. These are cut with 7/8 added to them, so there's not much wiggle room. Line that line up there. Make sure that nothing's hanging over edge. You want to see you don't want to see any gaps this way or that way. You want that 45-degree line to run parallel on top of your seam. All right, so then you make your first cut. This should give you kind of what they call a true corner. And then you're going to flip it 180 degrees, and your corners for each of these 2 fabrics should meet right at the point of that corner. So let's go ahead and line that up. Now we are ready to cut it down to 3.5. So my 3.5 vertical is right on the edge of my fabric, and then my 3.5 horizontal is right on the edge of the fabric. I don't see anything sticking out on this side, but I'm going to cut, and then I'm going to cut. At the very least, that gets rid of my dog ears. And then now I have a 3.5 by 3.5 half square triangle. Now let's talk about our split 1/4 square, our 3-piece split 1/4 square triangle. If your unfinished block is supposed to be 3.5 inches, you want to divide that in half. Where that 1 3/4 is on your ruler. So here we have the 1 inch line, 1 2 3/4 line right here. We want to find that same intersecting line on the horizontal. So here we have our 1 inch line, 1 2 3. So where those 2 1 3/4 inch lines intersect, we want that point to be right smack in the middle of our block. At the same time, we're going to keep our 45-degree line just like our half square triangle, and we are going to put that right down the center so that it's running parallel. Find that 3/4 inch mark, put that right in the center as well. Make your first cut. Flip it 180 degrees and repeat the same steps, keeping that 1 3/4 inch intersect right smack in the middle on that same point, and keeping your 45-degree line running exactly parallel with the rest of it. And as you can see, by doing so, we have our fabric line nice and straight with that 3.5 inch mark. So make your second cut. And there you have a nice 3.5 inch 3-piece quarter square triangle unit ready to insert into your block of choice. So I have several blocks that I need to finish squaring up. So I will go ahead and meet you back here. Okay, we're ready. We're ready for block assembly. So I've squared everything up. I've relaid the block out. I'm going to take them in pairs, starting with the far left 2 columns. Place them right sides together, sewing a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then chain piecing the remaining pairs. And I'll come back up and I'll start at the top here and I'll do the same thing. So let's go ahead and get this party started. We should have the majority of our seams able to nest. So what does that look like? So when we talk about nesting, if I lay these right sides together, one seam is going that direction and this seam is going the opposite direction. When we look at the two together, where this seam goes that way, it creates a bump. And on this block, where this seam goes that way, it also creates a bump. So now we have this kind of tongue and groove type effect between our fabric units. So if I put those right sides together and I put those two bumps together, they lock into place. So if I try to slide them, they won't move. So when we match up our seams, we want to make sure that our seams are nested, that tongue and groove are melded right into each other. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to get started with that 1/4 inch seam allowance, making sure my pieces are nicely lined up. So by nesting our seams together and lining them up, we come out with these nice crisp points. So that's really a great way to help align your points. The other thing that when you nest your seams together as well, it also helps to reduce the amount of bulk inside of your block. Makes it lay flatter and makes it easier when you're doing the free motion quilting part. So let's go ahead and continue with the rest of this and finish this block up. Since this is a 4x4 block, we're going to go ahead and take and alternate the direction of our pressing. So for the top row, we might go to the left, second to the right, third to the left, and final row to the right. And this will help ensure that our seams are nested really well. Okay, so we have everything pressed with our seams going in opposing directions. All right, now we're ready to go ahead and attach the rows to finish up our block. We have several points inside of our block that we want to make sure we maintain. All right, so what we do when we're going to go ahead and put our rows together, right, not only are we going to nest our seams, but we're also going to be conscious about cutting off our points. Okay, so what we're going to do is when we get ready to do our 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down the line, so if you can see here, it's kind of a little bit foggy, but my stitch line goes right there, and this stitch line goes right there, and it intersects right there. Then if I were to flip this over, you can see where those drawn lines intersect this way. So they intersect right there. When I go to stitch that 1/4 inch seam allowance down this way, I want to make sure that my stitching is on the outside of where those lines intersect. All right, and we don't want, maybe we don't want it right on it, but we want it 1 or 2 threads on towards the outside of it. And that's going to make sure that we don't cut off our points. So what I will do is, a couple of people have suggested using this in their, when you're matching points, is these forked pins, if you will. So I'm going to give these a try. Since this has the point, I'm going to take my pin and I'm going to put it through where that intersect is. So my pin will come out right at that point. Then I'm going to take that point and I'm just going to make sure that I pin it 1/4 inch away. So there's no point to match up. So you have to make sure that you put that needle in right there where the 2 seams meet and 1/4 inch away. All right, so now that I have that in there like that, I want my pin to be going parallel. All right, my seams, my edges are all nice and lined up. And then I'm going to take this forked pin and I'm going to slide it in so that that needle, or that first pin that I put in, is right in the middle of it. Just enough to keep it in place. And that should keep that seam and that point lined up. Now let's look at this one here. There's no point, but we still have our seams to be nested. So we're going to go ahead and here, just make sure that we've nested our seams together. All right. Very much like I showed you before. Lock those in place. And here I can just use a regular straight pin. And I'll do the same thing. Lock those seams in place. You kind of massage it to feel that it locks in. Once you feel that it's in place, and I'm going to treat each row this way to make sure that my points remain sharp. Okay, I think we're ready to do this. Now when I get to the needle, I'll drop it down right on that seam allowance, and then I'll pull out my pin. All right, let's see how we did on our first row. So it looks like we did really good. Our seams are nicely lined up. At point, it's pretty well intact. Might cover the tip just a little bit, but I think it's okay. And these seams are nicely matched up. So let's go ahead and finish the rest of these rows and the block. All right, I think this block just needs a good press and a good ending to this episode. There's our finished block. This is our Barber Shop Quartet variation. Now, when we talk about, there's a lot of points inside of this block. We have them out here, and then we have them inside of our star, and we have them inside of our pinwheel. I think we did pretty good on matching up our seams and keeping our points intact overall. Some of them look like they're pretty close. It just gives me motivation to continue trying to improve my techniques. If you have other methods that work really well for you on keeping your points nice and sharp, please go ahead and put them in the comments below. Share your tips and tricks with other viewers of this video. As I always do, I start with a practice block of a 6-inch block. So let's look at this one here a little bit closer in detail. Same block, just a reverse color scheme and a little bit of a variation there. These are all finishing at 1.5-inch blocks, so these pieces are quite small. There are a couple spots where the points don't 100% match up. If I was on a horse trotting by at 5 miles an hour, would I see it? Probably not. And you know, this is really a hobby. These are gifts and labors of love. This just encourages me to be more attentive and to figure out ways in my techniques on how I can improve on these things. I want to really thank you very much for joining me on this journey. I look forward to your comments and feedback, and even if you have a request, let me know in the comments what your request is. I can't promise anything, but I'll do my darndest to meet your request. Thank you for watching. As always, may all your quilting journeys be joyful, one stitch at a time.